Welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. This is where you get the latest updates on business, finance, economy, market, as well as investment information. If you couldn't follow us live on television, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, press the notification bell so that you can get notifications. Thank you. Enjoy this video. All right, welcome back. My guest is joining me right now, Dr. Gashinbaki. He's the founder, Chartered Institute of Forensics and Certified Fraud Investigators of Nigeria. Such a mouthful, Dr. Gashinbaki. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now, let's get started. Start by explaining or making us understand what forensic performance audit means in just a few seconds. Okay. Then we'll begin to look at it in terms of the role for MDAs, which is the executive, even the executive itself. Like I mentioned, President Tinubu is to present the budget next week.
Yes.
Is there forensic performance audit of the last budget? So just in 30 seconds, can you just explain that?
Okay. Basically, what most of us are familiar with is the traditional audit, which we know that the auditors are known for. And in the traditional audit, you just look at the financial records, look at the financial regulations, the policies, and the adherence to all of that, and look at all the areas that make sense in terms of how the monies were spent procedurally, in terms of the financial regulations and every extant provisions. So, but the twist to this is performance audit is the infusion of three things put together. One is the financial component. The second component is also the operational efficiency. And then the third component is the value for money. So anytime you are talking about performance audit, or when you hear that word performance audit, performance forensic audit, it entails the infusion of all these three intertwined, forensically deploying it to position.
All right, Dr. Gashinbaki is still with me, and we're talking about forensic performance audits, or is it performance forensic audits? Which one now?
Yes, forensic performance audit.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
whichever way is still
okay.
Yeah, it's still tenable.
Yes.
So essentially, what that means is the infusion of the traditional financial audit with value for money and operational efficiency. All this tied together gives you what forensic performance audit seek to achieve. Because the traditional audit just looks at the policies, regulations, the extant laws, to see the extent of compliance and how, whether the books of accounts are kept in a fair and proper view in accordance with accounting policies and standards.
Okay.
But the forensic aspect goes through a deep dive beyond the numbers to look at operational efficiency, to look at a component of value for money, to look at the financial infusion as to the quantum of money that has been infused to drive the efficiencies that is required operationally for any institution to run optimally.
Let's talk about the executive. Let's begin with the executive. Yes. I mentioned earlier President Tinubu is to present his second full, I think this year is his first full budget.
Yes.
2025 budget of 47.9 trillion.
Yes.
Now to the National Assembly next week.
Yes.
So how can performance forensic audits, what role can it play, especially around the executive made up of MDAs
yes.
and co? I know that a lot of chief executives of MDAs have been to the National Assembly trying to defend
yes.
their budgets and all of that.
Basically, it will help in so many ways because we know if we want to hold government accountable, the best way is to deploy forensic performance audit. Let's take, for example, the NNPC. The NNPC has been notorious with issues of disclosures. Nigerians are tired. We have issues of refineries not working or working endless. You don't even know what is the truth today. And then you have a situation where there is no data available out there that Nigerians can use to say this is where we stand. So the call here is very simple. Let's start with the NNPC. Do a surgical forensic performance audit on the NNPC to throw everything to the open so that the new NNPC Limited is properly x-rayed to the extent that we cut out all the inefficiencies that has made them now to engage in this endless pursuit of turnaround maintenance of refineries that has we've done this for decades. There are several numbers being thrown around that you don't even know what to believe. But some people will tell you in excess of $40 billion has gone into this process, and yet we cannot see anything tangible. So NNPC is one candidate. The other candidate also that we need to look at it is to look at the workings of the Nigerian customs. Part of the challenges we have, if we deploy forensic performance audit properly also, a surgical review and deployment of forensics in the workings of customs will enhance their operational efficiency, and therefore it will curtail issues of smuggling. It will regulate so many issues that we know that is another critical gateway.
I like that you said operational efficiency of the customs.
Yes,
not even important. About how much they generate now, because perhaps when these tax reform bills, the controversy is being sorted,
yes,
FIRS or the new revenue service will now be collecting money that customs ordinarily collect, and customs should now focus on its main mandate of our borders.
Trade facilitation.
Trade facilitation,
and
that's
securing
the
the borders.
Exactly.
That's exactly what they should do, because actually when we hear that customs is making money, Nigeria literally is an import country. So whatever customs declare, as we stand today, since we export little or nothing, is just import. So nobody should smile that customs is collecting money,
and
because that is
just
just
proud to say we generated so money. That's import.
Yeah.
Then.
So there is a need to conduct this, and like I said, my own advice to FG is that let us start with critical agencies like the NNPC Limited, the Nigerian Customs, including even the FIRS itself.
I was coming to that.
Because the FIRS, yes, commendable the current tax reforms that is being pushed before the National Assembly. I think we've been at the same spot for decades, and there's a need to review the tax legislation. And in my view, they are very, very progressive in nature. But beyond that, the working and the operational efficiency of the FIRS itself need to be put to question. And what will address that is to conduct a proper end-to-end forensic performance audit. That would throw up all the ifs and the whys. Why are we not getting things done?
How about the federal government itself? We talked about budget.
Yes.
Sometimes, many times, our budget did not even reach up to 50%. I think the best we've done, if my memory serves me right, is about 60%.
Yes.
And I think we got that 60% or 65% during Okonjo-Iweala last time, in terms of budget implementation. I'm not sure we've got, okay, let me just cut them a slack. Let me say 70%. This year's budget implementation, I don't know. I'm sure that Atiku Bagudu, the Minister of Economic Planning, will show. So, in terms of exactly the budget itself, how?
Okay, I have a different view that is a little bit, that will surprise you. You see, Nigerians, we are focused on budget, we are focused on corruption issues. And there are so many figures being thrown around as even the percentage of budget that is being misappropriated and sub-funded over the years. Now, what we are not also looking at, and that's what the Institute has looked at in this forensic performance audit that we are canvassing, is that we realize that the cost of inefficiencies, the cost of inactions, the cost of incompetence within the public service is costing us 3 times as much than the monies that are even being filtered and misappropriated. That's the truth. The surprising outcome of some of the reviews that we have done in the Institute was that we found out that even if, okay, what is 2020, what is the proposed 2025 budget?
47 trillion.
Okay, round it to 50 trillion. Assuming not a dime is misappropriated, assuming all the 50 trillion as budgeted, we get all the revenues to fund the budget, which means Nigeria is able to generate revenue of 50 trillion next year to fund its activities. What we are saying is that by the current composition of how our MDS, ministries and departments work, even if you put all the money in it, you will still have maybe 20, 30% outcome. So the issue of Nigerians now turning back to operational efficiency or performance optimization of the limited resources that we have is even far more important, because, and that is one area that we are not talking about.
Okay.
So because that cost, like I said, is 3 times as much than the cost of corruption itself.
Let's talk about the legislative arm, which is another very important arm, because this legislative arm of government have been accused of being a rubber stamp.
Yes.
You know, rubber stamp arm of government, that anything President Tinubu wants, they, you know, they answer him. But yes, how can forensic performance audit measure, you know, the effectiveness of legislative activities, such as perhaps the number of bills that are passed, the quality of the legislation itself?
Yes.
How can this process improve governance? Then another thing I'm also interested in is to evaluate the timeline of legislative actions.
Yes.
And the inefficiencies it causes.
Yes.
The PIB took us like almost 20 years, if I'm not mistaken.
2 decades.
Tax reforms bill now, we are seeing the K-leg, we don't enter them.
Yes.
You know, so, so just go ahead, Doctor.
Yes. Very good question, Nancy, for that. That is why this is very important. What sense does it make for the National Assembly, for example, in the 9th Assembly, if you look at the total number of bills they have passed across the 4 years, they passed almost 500 plus bills. How many of those bills have been assented by the President, by the 9th Assembly? Very few. So the idea is, what sense does it make for the National Assembly to keep on chunking bills upon bills that at the end of the day, assent is not granted? Taxpayers, for every sitting, the National Assembly should be in a position to tell us now, if they sit per day, how much does that cost Nigerians? Because don't run out the clock for 4 years, chunk out bills that are mere duplications, they are not even done in time, everybody can cook up anything and pass, and then at the end of the day, the bills are not passed, assented, and then it becomes waste of legislative effort. Further to that, what is even the quality of the oversight and investigative activities that they have done? We have had several investigative committees. What have been the outcomes?
Over the years, many.
Yeah. Multiple inquiries, panels of inquiries of NAS. So I think the forensic performance audit will serve as a mirror for all the tiers of government, the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, to look at it. And it's going to be backed by data. That's the beauty of it. Because unless we have a data-driven government and a policy backed by data, and everything that we're doing that is backed by data, we will just be going round and going nowhere. Okay. So the National Assembly need to sit back and move away from all this jamboree of saying we are legislators, and we are making laws, it's our constitutional powers. Nobody is encroaching with their constitutional powers. But what we are saying is that put laws that are impactful, work in synergy with the executive that those laws will also be assented. And if you think the laws are so germane and they are for the good of the nation, if the president declines assent, veto the president. You know, what was also going on my mind is even the legislators, individual legislators, an assessment of individual legislators, constituent engagement practices. Because they say, oh, my constituent, let me go back home. Then even the legislators' information to the public, because they also owe us
the public feedback, and not that if you want to get a senator or a legislator to talk, or they have a consensus among them, no, don't talk to press, don't talk to press. But during elections, you'll be looking for us to talk to you, or to, that the public should vote. So those kind of assessments.
Yes.
Yeah.
The performance audit will throw up all that, the quality of your engagement with your constituents, the outcomes of those engagement, the follow-through of those conversations as to whether they are implemented, all of that. The forensic performance audit is an integrated review that looks at all of this, so that Nigerians now understand where the bleeding is coming from, where the loss is coming from. Yes.
This is a very big one, and I hope I will have time to ask the main question at the end of the day. That we will
Go ahead.
Yes, we will bail the cat.
Yeah.
But let's move to another arm of government, which is the last,
Yes.
the judiciary arm.
Yes.
How can forensic performance audit perhaps help in, what also came to my mind is the average case disposition time.
Yes.
For example, inefficiencies in case clearance rates.
Yes.
And some other issues that we have even in the judiciary,
yes,
as it were.
The judiciary has multiple dimensions of problems. In as much as the judicial officers, they are the ones in the limelight because they are the judges. But in the judiciary, there is also the non-judicial officers, the registrars, the people that run the courts. The racketeering in the judiciary is in two folds. And by the time you do a surgical forensic performance audit of the judiciary, you realize that all those lacks that you have, cases being delayed, justice is not being dispensed, judgments are allegedly bought, all those things are sequenced and they are all intertwined. I can tell you, and you can confirm this, a judge, no matter how powerful, on his own, hardly will be able to manipulate a case, unless also the other non-judicial officers that run the courts are involved, because there are so many technicalities that are involved in these things. The court process that we have today is cumbersome. Technology is being not deployed, it's still primitive. Our judges are still using longhand to take, they will tell you yes, you say yes. That's how they testify in courts. So all these are prone to challenges. You cannot do e-filing, virtual hearing is still a challenge. So there are myriads of issues that, again, forensic performance audit in the judiciary will throw up the data to show. And let me use this opportunity to call on the NBA that I have always had this view that if we are looking for reforms of the judiciary, it's not going to come from the benevolence of judges. It has to come from outside pressure. The NBA should spearhead this, work with other professional bodies and other civil society groups and other NGOs to put pressure so that we can have needed reforms within the judiciary. And the reason why they cannot reform themselves is that even the NBA itself, what can you say while tomorrow you will be in their court? You understand?
Yes, I
so
do.
that pressure needs to be galvanized outside, and then that is how reforms will come as far as judiciary is concerned.
To enhance court productivity on every side.
That is it.
As it were.
Because
Yes. Our
accelerate court
processes,
processes, deposition of cases, accelerated adjudications. So all that need to be
there's also the question of, sorry to cut you short, the
Yeah.
question of accountability and transparency in running the resources around the judicial process.
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
So,
because if we look at the budget that goes to the judiciary, and even the 3 tiers of government, at the end of the day, you look at the financial resources vis-a-vis the output is something that begs the people to question. And if we have the relevant data through forensic performance audit, we'll now be able to question. I'll take you further. Leave the judiciary alone. If you look at even educational institutions, we have institutions that have been around for decades or probably more. And then if you even go beyond educational institutions, government departments have existed for years, 30, 40 years, they are in existence. If you look at the quantum resources that have gone to those departments and agencies, And what have they actually done in accordance to their mandate and function?
Commensurate to what they've
Commensurate
gotten,
to that.
yes.
It's nothing to show for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just take a few seconds and with this that we've talked about now, like I mentioned, who will bail the cat? Is it like your institute, or how will we begin to get this done? There's an audit, auditor general.
Yes.
Too, of course, that's traditional one.
Yes.
There's an accountant general because they also process it. But how do we get this done? 30 seconds?
Yeah. The way to get this done is twofold. First, the institute is there to work with the federal government and the subnationals, and including the local government, to support this process. Any of the tiers of government that is interested in this, the institute pro bono will give this support to ensure that it's instituted. That's one. The second angle is also, this is to all Nigerians. We need to make sure that henceforth, the people that will get into governance, because the biggest challenge of Nigeria is that we have a bunch of incompetent and unproductive elites in power. And therefore, that needs to change. Our selection and recruitment process has to be on merit.
No, anyway, I don't want to elongate the program further than this because I wanted to ask another question, but let's leave it at that. We'll continue another day. Dr. Ilyasu Gashinbaki is the founder of Chartered Institute of Forensics and Certified Fraud Investigators of Nigeria. And we've been talking about the deployment of forensic performance audit on the 3 arms of government. Thank you very much once again for coming.
Thank you for having me. Nancy.
All right, and that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you all for your company, as always, and I think it will be right at this time to say compliments of the season, really, because everyone is preparing for the holidays. Be the best you can be, and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Bye now. Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content. Bye.